Inventing is the easy part. Inventing is the fun part. It's commercializing it, which is the grind, which is the pain, which it takes the years and the millions of dollars. And so, yeah, maybe somebody will steal your idea, but it's really, really unlikely. And it's nowhere near as likely as you're going to start building something that nobody wants.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am your host, the Doc Outside the Box, Dr. Nee Darko. And I hope Thanksgiving and I hope the holiday season has been good to all of you all. I had a great Thanksgiving and we've got another really good episode for you. But before I get into the episode, I quickly want to read some 5-star reviews from Apple Podcasts. This next one is from G Rads. The title is Really Digging It. 5 stars, really digging it. And it says, physician and former software engineer here. Okay. Really enjoy your podcast. It is very motivating to someone like me looking to do something entrepreneurial, a side hustle, or reduce my clinical time. So G-Rads, thanks you so much for leaving me a 5-star review. Next one is from Miss Na RN, and it says, Dreamer's Gift. Oh, okay, cool. If you're looking for a spark or some inspiration, listen to Docs Outside the Box. The host, Nee Darko, is a genius and inspirational. So, Ms. Na RN, thank you so much for the 5-star review. Much appreciated. And the last one is Trauma RN98. Yes, Trauma RN98. And it says More Podcast. That's the title. And the comment is want more. So, all right, I'm going to give you more. So, once again, everyone, thank you so much for leaving me an Apple Podcast 5-star review. And like I said, if you guys listen to any other podcasts in general, the best way to thank the podcast host, the best way to say that you really enjoy the podcast is just take a moment to go to Apple Podcasts and leave a nice 5-star review. It helps the show with moving up the rankings as well as garnering, more great guests for the show. So on to our next interview. My next guest is Dr. Graham Snyder. And before I even start talking about him, I quickly want to say that drowning is the leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 5. And the second leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 15. And in the United States, on a yearly basis, about 1,000 children die in America every year from just unintentional drowning. And my next guest, as I said before, Dr. Graham Snyder, he is an ER physician, and he, as an ER physician, has experienced having these painful discussions with affected parents way too often. And as a result of these conversations, as a result of, seeing kids just like his, die or have really unintended consequences from drowning, he decided to have a solution to the problem. He decided to do his own solution. And his solution is called the SEAL Swim Safe system. In essence, it's a monitor that goes around your child, and based on how long your child is underwater, a loud alarm is going to go off. And obviously, this alarm is going to alert anyone who's nearby, any adults, any parents, of actually a potential drowning. Now, this product has been all over. It's been featured in the New York Times. It's been on the Today Show. And even right now, as of right now, this recording, you can purchase it on Amazon. So on this show, me and Graham, we're going to talk a lot about the invention process, being an inventor, being a physician, as well as being a CEO of his own company. We're also going to talk about some of the potholes that he faced when he tried to create his product, literally from taking his product from, making something in his garage and taking it from proof of concept to now taking it to a company for commercialization. That's something that's really important that you all want to take note of. And then the other thing too that's really interesting is what his pitch was to other investors and what he felt he looked like in front of them. So if you've ever wanted to know what is involved in the process of inventing, how do you get an invention out there? How do you make money from an invention? How do you start your own company inventing? Then this podcast is for you. So without further ado, I present Dr. Graham Snyder.
Back at it again with another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm excited to bring to you Dr. Graham Snyder. And on this show, we're going to talk about the inventing process, inventions. And Dr. Graham Snyder, welcome to Docs Outside the Box.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
You are CEO of Seal Innovation Incorporated.
That's correct.
And creator of the Seal Swim Safe system. I've been really excited to try to get you on the show because I heard about you through the Physician Mom Group. I guess your company sponsored the Physician Moms Group's recent conference. And after hearing about your company and what you're doing and that you were a physician, I've been trying to figure out ways to get you on the show. So thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Well, look, before we get into specifically all the inventions that you're doing and what you're doing with your company, because I find that very fascinating, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like what medical school you went to, residency, things of that nature?
Sure. I was a chemical engineer in college, went to North Carolina State University, and then following that went to University of North Carolina Medical School in Chapel Hill, and then went up. Indeed. And then went up and did a residency in emergency medicine at North Shore University Hospital in New York. And then since then, I've been working at Wake Emergency Physicians, a private practice that covers the Wake Med health system and a couple of UNC hospitals, as well as I am the associate program director at UNC Chapel Hill.
That's a lot of slashes after your name, man. You're pretty busy.
It is. It's a source of constant amusement for my wife when people ask me at a cocktail party, "What do you do?"
Now, obviously you're practicing and you're also CEO of a company. Are you practicing full time?
Yes, I have a fairly limited clinical schedule because of the residency obligations, as well as I run a very large simulation center at Wake Med. So from a clinical aspect, my shift count is much lower than your average full-time emergency physician. But then my administrative hours more than make up for that.
Now, you mentioned that you obviously, when you graduated from college, you graduated with a degree in chemical engineering.
Yes.
Did you know that that your end product would be that you'd be inventing, you'd be a CEO of a company, or you just always wanted to be a doctor, but you also had a very strong interest in chemical engineering?
So,
because chemical engineering is no joke.
Yeah, it is. It is no joke, and I'm gonna be dangerously honest here.
All right, let's hear it.
My father told me I can major in anything I want as long as it's engineering. And
was he an engineer?
Yes, indeed. Yes, he's a professor of engineering at North Carolina State University. And all jokes aside, I was concerned that I would never get into medical school just because it's such an intimidating process. And I decided on medicine, as a elementary school student. But when I got close, or when I started into high school or started into college, I thought, I might not make it, and I need to have a job, which is fascinating and interesting regardless. So I did chemical engineering and pre-med at the same time, but always with the knowledge that I was going to give it a shot at getting into medical school.
They kind of share the same prerequisites, though, right? Like physics and chemistry and orgo and all that stuff, right?
I only took one. I did. People think, wow, you did chemical engineering and pre-med, and they're so impressed. But it was one course. I had to take zoology. That was the only course.
Got you. And you killed it, right?
Zoology was, yes. I did well.
Now, did you spend any time afterwards working in the chemical engineering field, or did you go straight into med school after graduating from college?
Not a day. I went straight into my summer jobs during college I was doing lung transplant research at Bowman Gray, which is now called Wake Forest, and then I did another summer doing neonatal metabolism research. So it was always medicine for me.
Okay. So take us, obviously we all are familiar with the whole process of residency and working as a physician. Take us through the process of how you became CEO of Seal Innovation. Like what happened? What sparked this interest? We want to hear everything. Take us through from point A all the way to where you're at right now.
So, it's an interesting story. The process of becoming CEO was more out of necessity than out of decision. The thing that happened to me while working as an emergency physician is basically a lot of heartbreak. As an EM physician, when I'm working in the bays, I have to talk to a family member about someone who has died probably every 3 or 4 days. It just happens a lot. Mm-hmm. It's always painful. There's always tears. But it's usually people who you kind of knew were at the end of their life. These are very old people or very chronically ill people or people with, reckless and dangerous lifestyles where people suspected that it was coming. The drowning of kids is not like that. The drowning of kids are kids that look just like my kids who are doing just the same things that my kids are doing. And they're very often very good and very attentive parents who just for that 1 second were looking at kid A when kid B went underwater and they didn't notice it. So when I got to go in and I got to talk to a mom and a dad whose kid I couldn't save, it fills me with grief and rage. And I decided, my God, of all the things that we try to solve, we should really be going after the number one killer of young kids under 5 in the United States. And from an engineering standpoint, I've got mammal. Mammal doesn't do well if underwater for too long. Make a sensor that tells you if mammal is underwater too long and save them. It seemed to me ludicrous that in this age of technology, we are still using 14th century technology to protect what we love most in the world. We put a person in a chair and say, watch them and notice. Noticing drowning is like noticing the unnoticeable. You're supposed to sit there in the bright sun and notice the one kid in all the screaming and yelling and music and sunlight who is not moving, not in plain sight, and not making any noise. As human beings, that is not what we notice. We don't notice things that are silent and out of sight.
Yeah, exactly.
So I started that off. I immediately as a naive inventor. I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll just figure out how to build it myself. And
so basically, you went into like a garage.
Exactly.
And had a soldering pen and kind of figured it out.
Yeah, and I bought a milling machine and milled some things and made this horrific prototype, which the punchline is it actually worked, but it was ridiculous looking. It was 3 inches long and 2 inches thick. It looked like it looked like you were wearing a log. Okay. But the concept worked. And so I got this thing in my hand, and then I thought, you know what? Maybe this is stupid. Maybe no one would want this. I should go out to a customer and show it to them and see what they think. And so what I did was my first thought was, well, why don't you go to someone who insures pools? Because they must hate it from the pocketbook standpoint, much less the heartbreak when someone drowns in their pool. So I showed it off to an insurance company that happens to insure YMCA pools, and they looked at it and they were like, we've been waiting for this for 30 years. Let's do it. Can you miniaturize it, make it mass production, and get it on our 6 million kids? And And I thought, well, sure, how hard can that be?
Now,
Well,
before this point, though, have you ever invented anything before?
I mean, I've toyed with invention, ever since I can remember. As a small child, I remember I remember inventing these ridiculous little boots that you could walk in a lake in. They were like little floating boots, and then as an older kid, everything from potato guns to a hot tub that would work in any pool that you made out of mud. And then I got fairly serious about it after college. The first serious invention that I did was shortly after the 1999 Australian study that showed that induced hypothermia for cardiac arrest could have some benefit. And I invented this magnificent kind of polypropylene cover that you could put on a human being and run iced water through and surface cool a person very rapidly to induce hypothermia.
Which is pretty ubiquitous right now, right?
Oh, well, funny story. So I probably spent 6 months inventing that, creating it, prototyping it, and even made a human body simulator that you could use to track the temperatures on there. And I thought, man, this is fantastic. This is going to save the world. This is going to make me millions of dollars and save countless lives. And patented and filed for patent on it, and was just overjoyed, so excited about this. And then I got a very stern letter
Cease and desist
from an attorney, and it turns out that some other bright girl or guy had invented this, and the patent had either issued or been filed about 6 months before I had filed mine.
So that's pretty disappointing to know that you went and did all this work, and it didn't work out. But now you're in this situation where you've created this tool, this item. You find that there's obviously an opportunity to mass produce this. Like, how do you go from having like a concept, a proof concept, I don't even know the term, I guess, proof concept, to saying, wow, like people actually want this mass produced? Like, that's got to be mind boggling.
Yeah. So in this conversation we've hit the key step, but that key step often gets lost on entrepreneurs, or I should say on inventors. And the key step is there are how many patents are there? There's 8.5 million issued patents in the United States now, 8.5 million. And 90%, 95% of those have never made anyone any money and have not gotten widely distributed to the world. And so the question is not, can you create something? The question is, can you create something that people want, that they will pay for at a profit, not as a money grubbing question, but the only way it will grow, the only way people will dedicate their lives and their capital to it, is if there will be a reward for it. And
Okay.
so talking to the customer early is very important. Now, when you first invent something, the spark of idea comes to you. I felt like I was going to have to paint my windows black and hide it in a safe, and I didn't want to talk to anyone because somebody out there would steal my idea and take it away. And to that, anyone who's done this before would just laugh and laugh and laugh, because inventing is the easy part. Inventing is the fun part. It's commercializing it, which is the grind, which is the pain, which it takes the years and the millions of dollars. And so, yeah, maybe somebody will steal your idea, but it's really, really unlikely. And it's nowhere near as likely as you're going to start building something that nobody wants. And so
So then, okay, with that concept in mind, then, like you said, so you have a concept that obviously people want that has a great chance of being commercialized. How did you go from your garage to miniaturizing this to now creating a company with that? Take us through that process then.
Yeah. So what I'm pretty handy with a soldering iron and can read a book, and I'm a quick study on programming and learning things like CAD. But no matter how hard one person works, there's no way that you can invent a commercialized product yourself unless it's totally simple, like a piece of wood, plastic. There's no way to do that without getting help. And you have two choices. To get help, you're going to need expertise. And so for me, it's obvious. So for me, I needed electronics expertise. I needed mechanical engineering expertise. And I needed business expertise as well as computer science. And so what you would have to do is find those people, and you're going to have to compensate them some way. One way is form a company, issue stock, and say, hey, if you work with me, I'll give you this percentage of stock of the company. And when it goes big time, you'll be rewarded. That's great for a while. People will work on a dream and a hope for a while, but they also have bills to pay, and people need money.
Right.
And so your choice as a physician is you can empty the savings accounts and pay them out of your own money, or you can raise capital. And raising capital is doing the same thing. Going to investors and saying, hey, I've got an idea, and if you give me money, I'll give you this percentage of the company. And when the company sells, you'll be rewarded.
Which way did you take?
I did both.
Okay.
I ended up investing a couple $100,000 of my own, and then and it just is not enough. And then I ended up raising a few $1 million in investors to build the product.
So okay, so that's pretty impressive though, right? To get millions of dollars from investors. But let's be honest, like, you're a physician, you work in the ER. I guess at this point you're working with residencies also. Like, how did they view you when you were going to, the quote unquote the suits and going to these investors and presenting something like this to them? What did you think? How did you think they viewed you?
So before, it would be a mistake to walk in cold and just say, hey, I invented something, and then start pitching your company, because
it's not like Shark Tank.
Well, no, it is like Shark Tank, but a bunch of and a lot of people look stupid and get thrown out. So you don't want to be one of those people. And so before, if you chose the road of being the CEO, being the person who raises the capital, you're going to need some training beforehand. And what I did was I enrolled in a series of classes and business and business training programs, short courses, at our company called the Council for Entrepreneurial Development. And hopefully most major cities have something like that, some sort of business development group where you can network and meet lawyers and business people and consultants, and also get business advisors who can help coach you. And I spent probably 6 months being coached on how to be a CEO and how to pitch before going out to the market.
Okay. So when you so that the next step is you present to them your plan, your pitch, you're getting funding. When did you decide, okay, you know what, I need to create a company from this? Or were you advised to create a company, or did you just say, okay, I'm going to continue marketing this product, I'm waiting for a company to actually pick you up? Do you understand what I'm asking in that situation?
I do, and you're bringing back memories now. Right. I had the naive belief that the way this thing worked was you invent something, you file a patent, and then you go to a major corporation and say, hey, I have a patent, pay me 5% of the sales and I'll sell it to you. Well, maybe 1 in 1,000 times, 1 in 10,000 times that would work. But unfortunately, businesses know how hard this is too. And if they have the choice of, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I went to the perfect customer for us, exactly who will probably acquire us one day. And I don't want to say their name, but it's a major, multi-billion-dollar public international company. And I went to them and I pitched them on the product that I showed them. And they said, hey, we love it. This is a custom fit for our company. And I talked to their head of product development. So this is perfect, right? The guy who develops products. And he said to me, the first thing I want to tell you, though, is we never develop any products at this company. Now, his title is head of product development. Mm-hmm. He said, what we do is we buy companies that have developed products. So if you have the choice, if you're a $1 billion company, and you have the choice of, paying some joker who's got an invention that might or might not work and might or might not sell, or you can pay a company 10 times as much for a product that is made, that does work, is in sales, that they figured out all that stuff again already, then it is way more advantageous to buy a company that is selling a product than to buy an idea that might one day be a product.
Okay. And in that situation, is that the situation you found yourself in?
Absolutely. So okay. The result of trying to sell an idea to a major company was, hey, that sounds awesome. We love it. So let us know when you're building it and that it's selling, then we'll do it. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. But so I could abandon it. I could do it myself, or there is a third option.
Okay, let's hear it.
The third option, which one of my friends who's an inventor has taken, is recruit a business team and a CEO who's done it before to take his idea and run with it.
And that's the approach that you've taken. So basically, you have a business team that's helping you basically market, develop, research this whole product?
Yes, but in my situation, I'm the one who raised the capital and is driving the business forward.
Gotcha. Now, how long has this company been working? How long have you been doing this?
Well, it's a funny question, and the reason is because the exploration phase from invention to, fooling around in my garage to showing it off and trying to sell it to public companies, then just starting to recruit a team, that whole, I thought of the idea maybe 9 years ago, and then kind of, goofed around as an individual for a few years, and then got very serious over the last 5 years where it's been pretty all-consuming.
Well, let me now ask you, I'm going to pivot for a little bit. I'm going to start to ask you some questions that the naysayers may have in their mind, and I want to get your advice, and I want you to kind of guide me through this process. So do you ever feel pressure while you're at work? Let's say you're in clinical medicine. Do you ever get pressure to kind of focus just on clinical medicine from your colleagues? Because I'm sure there's got to be times when it's very tough to balance both, and I know everybody has to know what you do outside the hospital, but can you speak about, pressure to kind of focus mainly on clinical medicine?
Yeah. So I'm an emergency physician, and so the stakes are very high, and the requirement for concentration is incredibly high, and multitasking while working in an emergency department is a recipe for disaster.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so what I do when I go into the emergency department is the phone goes off, the email doesn't turn on, and I'm there 100% for my patients. The guaranteed way to ruin a day for me is if it's very, very light, say it's Christmas morning and I'm working and there's not that many patients in the emergency department, is for me to start looking at my phone because, yeah, I can't. It's you got to be there for your patients, and so when you're interacting, trying to do business at the same time it's not right, and it's too hard. Now, what the second part of the question is, would I like to work more shifts and do more things with my practice? I would, and end up doing it. The truth of the matter is there's an incredible amount of hours in the week available for you to work. You get up at 7 a.m. and you work till 11 p.m. If you do that 7 days a week, that's 100 hours. And that won't destroy you, because that's still getting, solid 7 hours of sleep or so. If you do that for years, it's going to take a consequence. And
that's exactly what I want to get to.
And it is very, very hard. It's hard on your friends. It's hard on your family. It's hard on your body. And I didn't say this, but the most clarity and relaxed I feel is when I'm working in the emergency department, because then I only have one thing to do. It's do my best to prevent pain and suffering for patients. And to me, that's the easy part of my life now. I'm really good at that.
Well, let me press you on that then. So since you say you find more peace in the ER, what you do in clinical medicine, let me ask you a question. What do you find more rewarding, being a doctor or being an inventor? Because in both aspects, you're saving lives. I would say as an inventor, you're saving lives on a larger scale. But Dr. Snyder, I want to know, what do you find more rewarding?
The answer, the true answer is that it depends wildly. Just like if you ask me, do you enjoy working in the emergency department? So there are days where you could work in an emergency department and see patient after patient after patient who either has no organic medical disease. They've got a chronic pain syndrome, which is poorly understood and unfixable, or they have end of life problems, severe dementia and sepsis where there's no hope of cure. Where I leave the shift and I'm like, what did I do today? This is so frustrating and disheartening. And then there are other days where I have a nursemaid's elbow and then a shoulder dislocation and then, a septic 45-year-old who comes in comatose and leaves the emergency department smiling, asking for a chicken sandwich, and where I feel like a hero, and it's so wonderful and so rewarding. The SEAL business is exactly like that. There's, the breakthroughs where you solve huge problems, where you land a new customer who could expand your impact by thousands or tens of thousands of lives. It's just you're on top of the world. You're joyous at the mountaintop.
You're moving and shaking.
And then there are days where your battery supplier says, "Oh, sorry, it's going to be another 14 weeks until I can supply that," and you've just promised a customer that they're going to be getting something in 14 days, and your cash is running out, and your customers have found a bug where where it's just crushing. It is much like the emergency department. It is a roller coaster of joy and despair, of incredible fun to grinding monotony.
Okay. Interesting take on that. I haven't heard that said before. Now, for the physicians who are out there who are listening to this podcast, are interested in doing something similar, may not want to, be in charge of their own company, but are interested in inventing something. What's your advice? What's the number one piece of advice you would give to them?
Oh,
if you could pare it down to one.
Yeah. So I was talking with a very prominent businessman who's runs $1 billion company, and he said to me years ago, he said, Graham, he said, you're like a dog chasing a bus. What I got to warn you is, it looks to me like you're going to catch that bus, and then what are you going to do with it? What I mean by that is, if you jump down this road, then you have to realize what you're signing up for. And what you're signing up for is not easy. The way I've done it is the hardest way, which is also the way that has the most reward. It's like buying some crazy IPO stock or buying Coca-Cola. If you want to get the upside, you got to take the risk. If you want to be a CEO, you want to be the one driving it. You want to be the shareholder who benefits the most from a profitability standpoint and from a credit standpoint. Then you have to be willing to make that sacrifice. If you don't, then the most important thing is early on find good partners, find good leadership, find people that can take your idea forward, without you, or without you driving it. It's like emergency medicine. Unless you love it, you're gonna hate it. And
as a trauma surgeon, I'm not a big fan of the ER, but I do appreciate what you guys do. So, but I definitely understand that sentiment. It's just one of those things that I think we all as physicians can understand, right? Each and every one of us enjoys our respective specialties, and if you ask us, could you see us do anything else, we would say no, right? It's pretty fascinating. It's really fascinating. If you had the chance to do this again, if you had a chance to invent the repeat button or redo button, would you do anything differently?
Oh, with the knowledge that I have now, about 100,000 things.
Okay. Would you be an inventor? Do you think you would have gone into medicine, or would you have just become an inventor or gone into chemical engineering?
Oh, you mean going way back?
Let's go way back, yeah.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Gosh. I have found emergency medicine to be a really rewarding career, and the highs and lows of it fit my insanity profile quite well. And so being an emergency physician, being there for any age, any medical condition, any mystery, has been an incredible joy in my life. So I would still be, if I had to do it again, then I would still 10 out of 10 times be an emergency physician.
Okay.
The invention part of my life is incredibly rewarding as well. And I don't play golf. I don't watch TV. My hobby and the thing that makes me happy when I'm not being an emergency physician is thinking of solutions to share with the world, or just to be entertaining. And so the path that I've chosen, emergency medicine with a minor in invention, has been the path that I would choose again.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
when running a business, the decisions that I've made, the people that I've worked with, the strategies that I've implemented, I would change many things, knowing what I know now. But if I did that again, then I'm sure I would learn more lessons. You can't go back. You can only choose your best path with the information that you have at the time and press forward.
Love the answer. So we are getting towards the end of the interview, and I just want to take a moment just to say, I think what you're doing is really impressive. And I just want to ask some quick, fast questions before we end the interview. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what's one thing that you want podcast or the listeners listening to this podcast to get from this podcast?
One thing that's really important that I never understood was the definition of the word entrepreneur. Everyone thinks about entrepreneur as being a person who starts their own business and works for themselves. But there's one part of that invention that one part of that definition that gets forgotten, and that's that it involves the entrepreneur taking risk. And the reason I say that is that if you're risk averse, you shouldn't do this, because it's going to be scary, it's going to be hard, and it's going to involve the possibility of loss. And so the idea of doing this to maybe balance out your portfolio to, hey, if medicine doesn't work out for me, this will be another source of income, that's a mistake. You should not go into this if you wanted to do it as an extra source of income, or you thought that it was a great way to make some more money. It very well may be, but your passion must be way stronger than that. If it's just a thought, hey, this might be nice, it's not worth it. You need to be dedicated to your very soul if you're going to jump into this thing.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you have given yourself to pre-med version of Graham Snyder?
Pre-med?
Pre-med.
To pre-med Graham Snyder, if I was going to do this, then I would learn a lot more. I would learn a lot more about business early on. The idea of having not just an MBA, but getting really familiar with the business and startup world before jumping in would have saved me a lot of pain.
Okay. What can the audience expect from you in the next 5 years?
Oh boy, well, I'm not going to tell you.
Is that patented? Are you going to patent that?
So
leave it in a dark room.
The SEAL swim safe system is fantastic, and I feel like it can put an end to the number one cause of death of kids under 5. My next company will be all about changing history.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. So, look, the last sentence that I ask all my guests is actually, it's a hashtag. It's a hashtag that says, I'm not just a doc. And it says, I'm not just a doc, I'm a, and it's blank at the end. Oh. And I ask all my guests this question because it's an opportunity for you to say, look, I'm a physician, but also at the same time, I'm very passionate about something else. And that is?
I'm not just a doc, I'm a problem solver.
See, I've never heard that one before. The audience hasn't heard that one before. I love it. That's a good answer. Excellent. Excellent. Well, Dr. Snyder, listen, this was really good. I've learned a lot about the whole invention process, running a company, being an entrepreneur from this conversation. I know the audience is going to learn a lot from this podcast also. So I just want to say thank you very much for being on the show. I know you don't have much time, and I really appreciate you fitting us in. Thank you very much. But I also want to take a quick moment just to acknowledge you for what you're doing. I think it's very admirable, first of all, just being in an emergency room physician. As a trauma surgeon, I kind of understand those life and death conversations, particularly at the beginning of life and also at the end of life. So I know that's already stressful as it is, but to take it a step further and actually find a solution is that much more impressive. And to go through the whole process of creating something on your own and then physically taking that to a company and pitching that and still being it's so nice to feel and to hear that you're very genuine to your mission, which is basically to save lives and to make sure that the kids that look like your kids never have to be in that situation again. So I just want to say kudos to you. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Dr. Snyder, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Take care.
And that's a wrap. I hope you all learned a lot from that episode. Definitely, I didn't know much about the inventing process whatsoever. So it was really a good opportunity for me to kind of learn all the ins and out of that. Listen, if you want to learn more about SEAL, Swim Safe, as well as Dr. Graham Snyder, check out his website at www.sealswimsafe.com. That's www.sealswim, as in Mary, SAFE.com. Or as always, just go to my website, www.docsotb.com, and check the show notes. There'll definitely be a link there for you to click and check out. As always, I love feedback. There's so many ways that you can reach back to me. Make sure you hit me up either on Facebook at facebook.com/DOTB, Instagram at NIIP Darko. Obviously, you can email me at nii@docsotb.com, and always Twitter with the Twitter handle at docsotb. So look, I'm going to catch you on the next episode. But before I jet, just remember one thing. We only got one life. Let's make it count and live outside the box. Peace.